I don't think I'm ever gonna put fish in this tank, guys. Like, we've gotten this far. It's been planted, I think, for like 3 months now. I'm sorry I haven't gotten an update for you in a while. I've just been crazy busy. It is a freaking mess behind you right now. I don't even want to show it. You'll probably catch it in the reflections. It's wild. But we're getting close to some other really big projects that I'm kind of halfway through right now, so that's kind of why things have been slowed down a little bit. But I wanted to give you guys an update on the tank, talk about why we don't have any fish in it yet. You know, did the Monte Carlo on the trees experiment work? And I think that's kind of it. But because it has been about 3 months since we planted this thing and got everything running, I have a lot better of a report for you guys on the equipment, the environment, the things that I've been doing to it to keep it the way it is, and kind of give you guys just like a really good comprehensive update on it. And don't worry guys, I'm just kidding. We are going to put fish in this tank. But for a while there, I did highly consider just not doing it because it was going to make my life like a million times easier. But real quick before we start though, guys, we got to send some love once again to Waterbox Aquariums for hooking me up with this monster of a tank. Like, none of this would have happened if it wouldn't have been for them being super generous and letting me have this super nice piece of glass in my life. So there's a link for their website down in the description. Go check out some of their freshwater tanks that they have. They have not just humongous tanks, they have some smaller ones too that are absolutely awesome. I do have an affiliate code for their website, so if you're ever like, man, I need a $2,000 aquarium in my life, I will love you forever if you go through the link and then do decide to purchase one. So thank you in advance. I love you. Why are there no fish in this tank yet? I think that's probably the biggest question that most people have. And the reason for that is not exactly a simple one, but I guess it is really simple. I mean, the tank so far has been doing so good without fish that it made me kind of not want to rush to put fish in it, like, to be completely honest with you. The other really big reason, and probably more of a reason for why there isn't fish in here yet, it's because I haven't been able to pick what fish to put in it. Let me get a chair really quick. This is going to be kind of a long video. Alright, can you see the tank good? Sorry for the ring light, it has to be there, guys. But alright, so fish, I'm going to need a lot of them for this tank. We're not going to just... Where was I? Fish? Yeah, so basically, we need a lot of fish for this tank. It's big. It's 160, 170 gallon water box aquarium. It's big, it's beautiful, and we created just like the best scape that I could do, and I love it, right? So we don't want to mess up the fish addition to this aquarium. There's a lot of restrictions on the fish that we can put in this aquarium, and that's why the decision was so hard. Obviously, we want to preserve the scale of the aquascape, the trees, right? So we can't be throwing rainbow fish or anything big like that into the aquarium for that reason, and because this is an open top tank. Right now it's at the point where I need to top it off, but we can't put a lid on this aquarium. At least I really don't want to either, guys. So that really limits us a lot. We can't just put any fish in here because they're probably going to jump out. Like rummy nose tetras, that was a contender. Obviously, no fast jumping fish, which is a lot of them. So that kind of limits us to fish that are small that don't typically jump. So a lot of nano fish, but then we're gonna need literally so many nano fish, I'm gonna have to get them wholesale, which isn't a huge deal. I have connections and friends that can help me get those fish and help keep the cost down, so not a huge obstacle there. But you know, brokering that whole deal and figuring that out isn't the simplest thing in the world. The timing has to be perfect. I have to be around. They have to have the time to help me do that. And then, you know, we have to order a ton of them. It's going to cost a decent amount of money, and we're going to probably lose a lot of fish when we're getting them in wholesale like that. So those are kind of the main reasons why I've taken my time, and really why we don't have fish in the aquarium right now. With that said though, we do have a deal that is kind of being structured right now, so we will hopefully have fish next week before I leave on a little trip. Or it might be when I come back from that trip. I don't know 100% yet, but we have picked the fish that will be going in this tank. There's going to be a lot of them, and it's hopefully going to be really, really awesome. But yeah, that's why we don't have fish in the tank right now. But they're coming soon, I promise. Now let's talk about the tank from a plant perspective. So the big question that a lot of people had, and even I had, was, is the Monte Carlo going to do really well on the trees in this tank? And the answer to that is yes. So it's a green light. I highly recommend, if you're into this style of aquascape, go for it. Get your hands on one of the prefab bonsai trees, get some Monte Carlo, and go for it. But with that said, there are some things that you need to know about doing that can really help you out. So let me explain that. The first thing that you're going to want to do is make sure you get the Monte Carlo from as good of a source as possible. I got these plants wholesale direct from Florida, so I can't be like, hey, go buy from this place. But I mean, good places to buy plants are highly reputable and highly rated eBay sellers. I get a lot of plants from time to time from just random eBay sellers that have businesses on eBay. I think in an update video a while back, I put a link to the listing where I got all of the dwarf hairgrass from, so I'll put that in there. And another one that I've bought Monte Carlo from before and had really good success with, so you guys have a resource there. But of course, you know, Aquarium Co-op has a lot of really good plants. I don't think he has dwarf hairgrass. Definitely has Monte Carlo, as well as some other plants, but you guys probably know that that's already a good source. But the number one thing you want to do, regardless of the source that you get it from, is get that Monte Carlo and don't put it into a tank, or, you know, don't directly put it onto a tree and then throw it into a tank. What I recommend you do is grow that stuff immersed for a little while. If you guys saw the planting video on this tank, we had Monte Carlo that was sitting in our little greenhouse tub things that I got on Amazon for like 3 weeks, maybe even a month. And what that does is it gives the plant total access to all the CO2 it needs. It helps the plants to develop a really nice root system and gets them just super healthy and green, and in my opinion, in a lot better shape to be put into this kind of tree setup, okay? And it's gonna make the plant be a lot better for any application that you then go and do in your tank. It doesn't really matter. That's my opinion. Of course, some people prefer not to do the immersed thing because they think then the plant is used to growing up out of water, which is totally valid, but in my experience, it's worked out well for me. So I recommend you do that, and you can do that with other plants too. We actually have some baby tears over here that we're gonna be using on an experimental tank here in the near future. I'm doing the same thing with that stuff because even if it comes in not looking too hot, you can rebound it in that immersed setup, and then I just think that you're gonna be way better off than putting it into aquarium later rather than right when you get it and it's not doing too hot. Now with that said, some of the Monte Carlo is looking a little beat up. There's a couple particular areas in the tank where some of it started to brown out and just randomly die. It's a very small percentage of the total Monte Carlo in the tank, so not a big deal. I didn't have to replace it. I just picked out a few of the, you know, killed off parts of the plant, and things are looking fine still. I don't think that has anything to do with lighting or nutrients. I think it's just random plant physiology. Sometimes you get some die off and you just have to deal with it. So luckily it wasn't that bad, and the overall scape looks just fine. There's other plants in the tank, of course. There's moss, there's hairgrass, there's booze. I don't think there's really anything to say about the moss or the booze. They're doing fine. They're relatively easy plants to keep, and in this system they're doing just fine. The S. repens is also doing really well, which is kind of interesting because the hairgrass isn't really propagating that well. If we look down here at the substrate, we can see that the plugs do have a little bit of growth coming off of them. They have a really good root system, but it's definitely not filled in that much. And I don't think that's a reflection of the quality of the hairgrass. I think it's mostly that this plant wants to have a little bit more light. This is a 2-foot tank from top to bottom. Our lights are even higher above that point because we're suspending them. And I think the current LEDs just aren't throwing out enough par for those plants to really get them to carpet. We'll talk more about the lighting in a little bit, but why I think it's interesting is that the S. repens is a plant that, in my experience in the past, has had a similar light requirement as the dwarf hairgrass, yet it's not leggy. It looks like it has plenty of light, and it's doing really well. So kind of a confusing situation there. There's probably more to that story that I just don't know at this point. So yeah, I think that's kind of the whole story with the plants. I mean, we have a little bit of the mini pellia in there, but it's basically just the same as moss. It's pretty easy to keep, and it doesn't really grow a lot, and it's doing just fine. So yeah, that's the story with the plants. They're all doing well. I've been adding fertilizers kind of consistently. I've been using a mix of like everything. I was using the Brightwell stuff for a while, then I switched over to using Corey stuff, and then I was using some homemade stuff that's like 3 years old, and it, you know, just keeping the nitrate level at 30 parts per million and everything else kind of proportional to that has seemed to be working out just fine for me. Okay, so now I'm tired of sitting, so I'm gonna pick the camera back up. Hopefully it won't be too shaky, and we're gonna go through kind of the equipment and talk about the pros and the cons. We'll talk about the lighting. I mentioned that a little bit earlier, as well as the filtration, the water movement mechanics of the tank, and I think that's it. We're not running a whole lot on this tank. So let's just go ahead and start with the lighting. So we are using the current Serene 6-foot LEDs. We have 2 of them up here. If you can see them, they're spread out here on these brackets. And here's the thing. The current Serene kit was not designed to be a super high-tech plant growth LED, okay? I wanted to try it because, one, it had the background light capability. I got the double blues on right now. We might change that up a little bit later so you can see what it can do. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to use them for that, and because I wanted to see if they would be good for growing plants and help them out to maybe better market their product if it made sense. And so it does work, right? Like the Monte Carlo is doing really good. Obviously, it's up close to the light source though, so it's getting a decent amount of par. This light throws an estimated 26 par at 2 feet. That would be, and so 2 feet is from the top of my glass down to the bottom of my glass. And so if we kind of estimate out, you know, the height of the substrate as well as the distance we have here. So the light does have to throw more than 2 feet, a little bit more down to get to these bottom plants, but it really shouldn't be that big of a deal. This is a high-tech tank, but we don't have a bunch of super high-tech plants that require, you know, 50, 60 par in order to do well. We're playing around with the Serene kit over on some of the other tanks that we have in here, guys. The Avatar tank has it running now. Everything has been doing fine. It's been set up on that for like 2 or 3 weeks now. So I can confidently say that this is a good system, a good lighting system for, you know, even a high-tech tank. Maybe not like a crazy, super die-hard hobbyist that's growing like the hardest plants ever. Probably not something you want to use, but for the average hobbyist, this is certainly a good option. And I'll be real with you guys, you know, I got involved with Current a little while ago because they really want to change their products and they really want to innovate the space. And so we've been working on some stuff together behind the scenes for a few months now, and it's about to kind of kick up a notch here. They just really want to get people the best products that they can possibly make, and at a good price too. So a lot of things are going to be changing here over the next few months. I'm really excited to share those things with you when I can, and it's only going to be good things for you and for me. So I'm really looking forward to that. We're running CO2 on the tank as well, guys. We just have a CO2 art regulator down here on a big tank. My bubble counter is dry, but that is okay because I'm just kind of dumping CO2 into this aquarium. I want to get better at estimating the amount that we have going in. It's running up here and going through a wave pump, which we'll mention here in just a second. So not really a very precise addition of CO2, but this system just is going to lose CO2 all day. I don't even think you can put enough CO2 into a tank this big, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. We'll do some fine tuning in a little bit. The only other thing that we really need to talk about, guys, as far as equipment goes, is the filtration. So remember, we have an AQUAPROS Biomaster Thermo 600. This is their big boy filter, the biggest one that they make. It's got an integrated heater back here that you probably can't see because it's too dark, but that was a big reason why we wanted this, because we didn't want to have a heater in the tank, and because AQUAPROS wanted to work with me this year, and I wanted to work with them because they're another example of a company that's really interested in innovating their products that they have. They don't want to just keep making the same stuff, but the fact that they really want to innovate their products, make them more accessible to people, and try to create a overall less stressful experience when keeping these organisms and these aquariums is, I mean, that just means a lot to me, and that's a company that I want to work with. Now, that being said, some of the things that I discussed with them was, A, I don't love the flow rate on this filter. It's rated, I think, at 350 gallons per hour, which is a little low for, you know, running on a big tank like this. It certainly has the volume capacity for a planted tank with not a absolute ton of humongous fish, but the flow rate was a little weak, and so to supplement that, we have a Current USA efflux pump over here. It's just a wave pump, and that's running at about 400 gallons per hour to kind of offset the lack of flow that we have out of this thing. So because we have our biomedia now kind of getting clogged up, nice and full of bacteria like we want it. The flow rate on this does take a little bit of a hit, and I wouldn't be surprised if this was running at like 200 gallons per hour or less, you know, given the fact that we're pumping it up a few feet. So to combat that, like I said, we're running the pump over there. We can notch that one up all the way to 1,000 gallons per hour at max speed if we want. It's all controllable on a little app on your phone, so that's pretty cool. I feel like we have a good turnover in this tank with a combination of these two. But like I said, you know, nothing's set in stone with these products, so you never know when the Biomaster series is going to get an upgrade as far as the flow rate and stuff goes. I can't confirm that. I can't tell you that that's going to happen, but it's definitely a possibility based on the attitude of AWASA. So all good things. Minor flow rate issues aside though, not a huge deal for me, especially when I don't have any fish in this tank. My filter is basically just a pit for mineralizing compounds and providing food for bacteria at this point. The filter's running good. It's easy to clean. You just come over here and do a little whoop, 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 and pop that thing out, get the sponges out. You can clean them out. You don't even have to worry about opening up the filter completely. So I like using this, and I think I'm going to continue to use these filters on a lot more of my tanks. What about algae in the aquarium, guys? We definitely have some. There's some right there. It's this like stringy stuff. It's kind of growing a little, there we go, kind of growing a little bit on the Monte Carlo there. This piece that's coming down. So I do have to get in here probably every other day and do a little bit of manual removal just to keep this stuff at bay. But you know, overall the algae issues have not been bad in this thing. It's mostly just cleaning the glass, and so, you know, not a big deal. But when you have a tank that has some square footage to it, it can be a little annoying. And, you know, put that on top of the fact that there's a lot of real estate kind of in the way. The trees are, you know, everything's in the way in this tank when you're trying to clean it. We got the vines and stuff. And that kind of brings me to my next big thing with the aquascape. And that is the fact that a bunch of my trees are not secure. So like, let's come over here and go like this. That guy's totally wobbly. There's actually a stick in the back propping him up, so he's easily to knock over. This guy's not attached either. And let's see, I think this dude, yeah, he's rock solid, but this guy right here, yeah, no, he's not on. This guy right here in the very far back is actually sideways. I think originally he was more like that. So that's kind of an issue. Some of you diehard fans out there who watched the setup series of this tank will remember that we attached the trees using the cigarette filter method. So we used like some baking soda, some super glue, and like the cotton that's in cigarette filters, and we basically just created this really maybe dangerous chemical reaction to get the trees to adhere to the rocks, okay? And I thought I did a good job of it. It was my first time doing it. Turns out it didn't really work that well, and so that's why the trees are kind of just floating around, which makes water changes a little bit more difficult. We have to do a simultaneous drain fill on the tank, because if we drain it down too low, all my trees are going to fall over, which I don't want to do. So that's kind of an issue, but it's something that we deal with right now. I actually figured out a pretty accurate way to know how much water I'm changing while I'm doing a continuous drain fill, and that's going to be hopefully the video right after this. So if you're interested in that, just stay tuned. That'll be out pretty soon. It was kind of a genius move by me. Not really, but you might think it's cool. So yeah, guys, I mean, we really just need to add fish to the tank, and then we can truly enjoy this thing. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love hanging out over on my couch when I'm playing video games or watching a movie and just peek over here and see this bad boy. It's awesome. I love it. But once we have fish going through there, it's going to be just that much cooler. And you guys are going to, like, the same day that I get the fish, I promise I'll shoot a video and I'll upload it and get it out that same day, okay? I promise, because I know a lot of you guys are just dying to see fish in this thing like I am. I think there's also some creative things that we could do around the top of the tank to help keep fish and invertebrates in and preventing them from jumping out and climbing out. We'll just have to cross that bridge once we get there. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. This video is probably way too long, so I'm going to end it off here. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, if you're new, to subscribe, hit the like button to help the video out, help the channel out, and also check out the playlist where we set up this whole tank if you haven't seen it. Thanks again so much for watching, guys. I hope you like this tank as much as I do. We'll see you in the next one.